people.
The woman who played television's most determined social climber had already won a Tony Award on Broadway before Hyacinth Bucket existed, and the writer who created her never once visited the set. Behind one of Britain's most beloved sitcoms lies a story of artistic conflict, a deliberately disgusting vest, and a spin-off that never got made.
Let's find out.
Fact 1. Routledge had a Tony Award.
My name is Bouquet. B-U-C-K-E-T.
When Patricia Routledge was cast as Hyacinth Bucket in 1990, she was not a newcomer being given her big break. She was one of the most decorated actresses in British theatre, a Tony Award winner for more than 2 decades. Routledge had won the Tony Award for Best Actress in a Musical in 1968 for Darling of the Day on Broadway. She had also won the Olivier Award for Best Actress in a Musical in 1988 for Candide at the Old Vic. She was a classically trained singer, an RSC alumna, and had appeared in Alan Bennett's celebrated television monologues throughout the 1980s. To the general public in 1990, she was not especially well known. Keeping Up Appearances changed that, and in a direction Routledge had not entirely anticipated. Clive Swift later said that Routledge simply did not want to be remembered as Mrs. Bucket. She had Tony and Olivier Awards. She was not going to let a sitcom be the final word. She was awarded a damehood in 2017 for services to theatre and charity. She died in October 2025 at the age of 96. The BBC described her role in Keeping Up Appearances as one of the most iconic performances in British comedy. The woman who played television's most determined social climber had been scaling actual heights for decades before Hyacinth existed.
I wish you wouldn't raise your arms like that, Richard, not when you're overheated. It's very common out of doors.
Fact 2. The writer never visited the set.
Why not just tell them that we can't ride?
I don't know that I can't ride. I've never tried.
Roy Clarke created and wrote all 44 episodes of Keeping Up Appearances. He was the single most important creative force behind the show. He was also almost never there. Clarke refused to function as anything other than a writer. He delivered scripts and considered his work done. This created a specific and documented problem. Producer Harold Snowd needed to make adjustments during filming, and Clarke found out about these changes and was furious. He regarded any tampering with his scripts as a fundamental breach. Snowd thought Clarke was being unreasonable. The situation became tense enough that the BBC eventually hired a script editor whose sole purpose was to manage communication between them, keeping Clarke informed of Snowd's changes and Snowd informed of Clarke's reaction. A full-time mediator hired specifically to manage the relationship between a writer who never came to set and a director who had to adapt scripts to production reality. This continued for the rest of the show's run. The sitcom millions watched as cozy Sunday entertainment was being produced in an atmosphere of ongoing creative conflict. The audience never suspected a thing.
I think it's called a Fatsia japonica.
You should see mine in the conservatory. Blooms this big. I'm sure it would interest your good lady.
Fact 3. Hyacinth was based on a real woman.
Have you anything for me?
Yes.
I knew it. He's pretending he's forgotten, and all the time
Roy Clarke did not invent Hyacinth Bucket from nothing. The character was reportedly inspired by a real woman he observed in a local shop, someone whose pretentious behaviour, whose careful management of impressions, struck Clarke as the perfect basis for a comedy character. Clarke had already explored Northern English social dynamics through Last of the Summer Wine and Open All Hours. Hyacinth was a sharpening of that interest into a single, concentrated portrait, one specific person who embodied the anxiety of an entire social type. The real woman has never been publicly identified. Clarke has been characteristically reticent, in the way that writers protect sources they have turned into characters. Whether the original ever watched Keeping Up Appearances and recognised herself is not known. What Clarke transferred from observation to fiction was the mechanism of class anxiety expressed as performance. The way that someone genuinely uncertain of their social position performs certainty so aggressively that the performance itself becomes the comedy. Hyacinth works so hard at something that everyone around her can see is unnecessary. The real woman was probably not as extreme as the character. Real people rarely are. But she gave Clarke the seed of something that 15 million viewers recognized instantly, because most of them had met someone very similar. Fact 4. Onslow's vest was deliberately disgusting.
I envy you, our Daisy.
Really?
It must be wonderful being married to a bum like your Onslow.
The physical details of Onslow and Daisy's world were not accidental. They were carefully constructed choices made by actors who understood that the contrast with Hyacinth was the engine of the comedy. Judy Cornwell personally selected her Daisy costume from the BBC wardrobe room. A grey cardigan she described as awful, immediately decided was exactly right, and wore throughout the series. She brought her own worn sandals from home. Geoffrey Hughes's Onslow vest became one of the most recognisable garments in British sitcom history. The production team would routinely make it grubbier before filming by throwing food from catering at it. Cornwell said viewers often told her they identified with Daisy and Onslow more than with Hyacinth, that they recognised themselves in the comfortable, unpretentious couple rather than the anxious social climber. The characters dressed in deliberate squalor turned out to be the ones audiences found most human.
You're just an old, cuddly softy.
Keep your voice down, we don't want everyone to know.
Fact 5. The show was sold 1,000 times.
He's like Marlon Brando in Streetcar Named Desire. Control yourself, Daisy. You're a married woman.
Keeping Up Appearances ran for 44 episodes between 1990 and 1995. What happened after it ended was extraordinary. By February 2016, the series had been sold to overseas broadcasters nearly 1,000 times. The American audience, built through PBS, was particularly loyal. The show remained a fixture of Sunday evening schedules for years after British production ended. The international success of a show about British class anxiety is, on one level, surprising. The specific social markers Hyacinth navigates, the Royal Dalton with the hand-painted periwinkles, the correct pronunciation of bouquet,
My name is Bouquet.
are intensely local. Yet audiences worldwide understood immediately. Social anxiety, the fear of being found out, the performance of an identity you are not sure you actually possess. These are not specifically British experiences. Hyacinth is English in her particulars and human in her predicament. That combination travels. If you're enjoying this, it would mean a lot if you subscribed. It helps us keep making videos like this one. Just hit that button and you'll never miss a new one. Fact 6. Routledge left because of recycling.
Goodness me, not even a quorum. How very fortunate I dropped in.
Keeping Up Appearances ended in 1995, not because the BBC wanted to cancel it, not because ratings had fallen, and not because the cast were unavailable. It ended because Patricia Routledge decided to stop, while the show was still drawing audiences of 15 million. Routledge gave 2 connected reasons. The first was the Ronnie Barker principle. It is better to leave while people are still asking for more than to wait until they are asking why it is still on. She cited Barker explicitly in a 2017 interview as the model for how to manage an exit from a successful show. The second reason was more specific. She felt that Clarke was beginning to recycle storylines. Ideas explored earlier in the run were reappearing in new episodes. For a performer of Routledge's standards, that was a signal the show had reached its natural limit. The BBC, the cast, and the crew would all have been happy to continue. Clive Swift later confirmed that Routledge simply did not want to be permanently defined by the character. She had a full career behind her and a full career she intended to have ahead. Her next major role was Hetty Wainthropp Investigates, which began in 1996. She continued working into her late 80s. The actress who chose to leave at the top did exactly what she said she would do, and proved Ronnie Barker right.
I'm entrusting you with a very special mission. I want you to collect Daddy with the utmost secrecy. Nobody.
Fact 7. Clarke planned a spin-off for Onslow.
Would you put that on room 210?
Very good, madam.
What's these?
Just a few biscuits, sir.
I've got a long drive. What about a bacon butty?
When Keeping Up Appearances ended without a revival, Roy Clarke developed a spin-off centred on Geoffrey Hughes's Onslow, one of the show's most popular characters. The proposed series was called Mind Your Manners. In Clarke's concept, Onslow would take what seemed like an easy job tending the gardens of a forgetful elderly lord. When the lord dies suddenly, Onslow, Daisy and Rose find themselves temporarily moving into the manor during a legal dispute. Rose, naturally, immediately begins lusting after the lord's estranged brother. The concept was keeping up appearances inverted. Instead of Hyacinth trying to reach upward into a world she doesn't belong in, Onslow would be deposited into one and have to navigate it from the other direction. The series was discussed in BBC in-house literature in 1997 and 1998 and referenced by both Clarke and Hughes in a 2009 Radio 4 broadcast. It was never made. Hughes died in 2012, and without him, the concept became impossible. Somewhere in the BBC archives, Mind Your Manners is still waiting. The spin-off that would have given Onslow his own chapter exists only in planning documents and the memories of those who discussed it.
There was a time when you used to chase me all over the house.
That was before we got colour, wasn't it?
Fact 8. The filming was in Coventry.
What's Daddy doing? He thinks he's back in the war again. He's been on guard outside the house all morning.
What a sense of duty Daddy has.
Keeping Up Appearances was shot in the Midlands. The exterior of Hyacinth and Richard's house was in Binley Woods, Warwickshire. Daisy and Onslow's council house was in Stoke-Aldermore, Coventry. The real suburban streets gave the show an authenticity a purpose-built set could never have provided. Neighbours fleeing Hyacinth were fleeing down actual streets. The show also filmed in Leamington Spa, Northampton, and occasionally further afield. One Christmas special included scenes in Copenhagen. Fans who visit the locations today can still find the houses largely unchanged. The street where Hyacinth held her candlelight suppers is a real street in a real suburb. The choice of Coventry was, in a small way, a geographical joke most viewers missed. Hyacinth spent 5 series escaping the ordinary from the middle of the West Midlands. Fact 9. Daisy's reading changed book sales.
I admit I used to be a bit of a menace with the female sex. I was dynamite. To me, the Kama Sutra was an owner's manual.
One of the running jokes in Keeping Up Appearances was Daisy's absorption in romantic fiction. The Mills and Boon novels she read voraciously and used as inspiration for her attempts to engage Onslow's reluctant interest. Harold Snoad gave Judy Cornwell a Mills and Boon book during production and suggested Daisy could have a romantic novel in every episode. Cornwell made it central to the character, Daisy as someone living in the gap between the romantic world of her novels and the cheerful chaos of her actual life. The effect on real-world sales was measurable. Cornwell later recalled being at a publishing dinner where Mills and Boon representatives told her their sales had gone through the roof following the show. A sitcom joke about romantic fiction had translated directly into commercial success for the genre being mocked. The character of Daisy, in her grey cardigan and terrible sandals, had done more for romantic fiction than most marketing campaigns. Mills and Boon presumably sent no royalties to Harold Snoad or Judy Cornwell, but the debt was genuine, and the sales figures were real.
You said I looked like a strawberry ice with caramel topping. You had to be prevented from licking me all over.
Fact 10. The show created a prequel decades later.
I hope the girl isn't going to make a habit of it.
Stop worrying.
People always ask what the father does. You can't just tell them he gets away.
In 2016, more than 20 years after the original series ended, the BBC broadcast Young Hyacinth, a prequel written by Roy Clarke exploring the character's origins in the 1950s. It attracted more than 4 million viewers within a week. The prequel was set in the working-class northern community that the older Hyacinth spent her entire adult life trying to escape. It showed exactly where the performance came from, the specific world whose existence Hyacinth's whole identity was built on denying. Clarke had always been interested in that backstory. The original series gave enough hints: the sister Violet, the brother-in-law Onslow, the general air of a family desperately papering over its origins, to make the prequel feel like natural territory rather than an afterthought. 4 million viewers within a week demonstrated that the appetite for the character had not dimmed. Roy Clarke's original creation had a depth that 44 episodes could not exhaust. Hyacinth Bucket began as a joke about social aspiration. She ended as a character rich enough to support a prequel, a near-miss spin-off, and decades of international repeats. Most sitcom characters end when the series ends. Hyacinth kept going.